Cool. Can actually pass this one around. Take a look at it. The entire day I spent in the pool playing with my 3-year-old son. That's how I prepared. And I spoke to my greatest counselor, my wife, and I asked her 2 days ago, what do you think the topics should be? Since there are so many chapters, what should I focus on? So 3 topics, 3 chapters I chose. It's a chapter about control. It's a chapter about not having a choice. The 3rd chapter was actually confirmation. But I think I'm gonna spin the dice on this one. Has anyone heard the story about a guy called Balder?
Balder?
Yeah. A long, long time ago, far, far up in the north, he was the son to the king and queen of the gods. He was the shiny, golden, kind of like Ra, or Jesus, or Krishna, the equivalent version. He was the golden sun. And he was the most pure of heart, the kindest. He was beautiful on the outside and the inside. And one day his mom had a dream, and she was queen of the gods. So her dreams often meant that, yeah, what I dreamt about is gonna come true. And she dreamt that her son would die. Very soon, he would die. The brightest star, the hope for everything, everyone, would die. So what did she do? Well, as a mother, she did everything she could to prevent this. So she went all over the world, in every world, all the 9 realms, and she asked every single thing in existence to please do not harm my son. She asked all the pillows, all the frames, all the swords, all the toothpicks, all the plants, all the animals, and every single thing agreed. Will not harm your son. Then what happened? Balder was pretty much immortal. He couldn't be killed, he couldn't be harmed, since everything in existence promised not to harm him. Except for one thing. There was this tiny little plant, a little shrub, kind of like a mistletoe. Her mom forgot to ask it, since she deemed it so insignificant. It was just a small little plant. So, one day, all of the gods, they were playing a game. They were throwing spears and shooting arrows on Balder, since he's immortal, so it's a fun game. Good target, and he can't be harmed, he can't die. And they're having such a wonderful day. And all the gods participate, except for one. Balder's brother is called Herdor. He sits in the shadow, and he doesn't partake. So Loki comes forth, asking him, why don't you participate in this fun game, like everyone else is doing? And replies, yes, but I'm blind. And besides, I don't have an arrow or a bow. So Loki tells him, it's okay. I actually happens to have an arrow here that you can use, and why don't you use my bow as well? And Herdor replies, but as I said, I'm blind. It's okay. I will steer your hand. So, Herdor, he takes the arrow, and Loki helps him put it into the bow. And can you guess what kind of material this arrow is made from?
Yes.
So, Herdor puts the arrow, and Loki helps him aim it at his beloved brother Balder. And he lets go. And Balder dies. That story comes from my childhood, and it's a story from Norse mythology. And that story summarizes the whole essence of the book. if you look at the chapters, they comprise of everything from families to spiritual practices to economics to society and social rules that we kind of stand by and maybe never question. Just like Herder, he never questioned his motives because Loki was part of the crew, part of the family. So he simply, went along. And the outcome was that his brother died. I know in Christianity, they have a thing called blind faith. And that is a good thing, right? Blind faith means that in Christian kind of ways too, you don't really need proof. You just feel it. This is the truth. While in Scandinavian ways of saying it, to have blind faith or blind trust means that you shouldn't really do that. That's a negative kind of thing. And that was the last thing Herder gave his blind faith to anyone. So yeah.
Same in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
I think it's telling you that, the awareness that you have about your surroundings and awareness that every cause has an effect and your intentions may not always result in what you expect to happen.
Heelys, right? Very similar.
Yeah.
Christian as well. I get the sense of fatality and inevitability of destiny. And it's really like a grandpa paradox. Try to go to the past to change the future, but the very act of initiating this remedy causes the tragedy. Which is, for me, it's very poignant. It's beautiful, but brutal.
Yeah. Anyone else? Don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Something you noticed about yourself?
I think many people participate in games that they don't know that always know the outcome. So once again, being aware of who you're with and what intentions you really truly have. Because they were playing around with the guy's life. They say, oh, he'd never died.
Yeah.
But you're still playing around with something that could hurt.
Yeah.
It has the idea of hurting someone.
Do you think that Loki, or Loke, in my native language, is he evil?
Like a trickster. Without him, there wouldn't be any moral coming out of the story. So he is an enabler of this lesson. But at the same time, what he did was definitely amoral, let's say. Not necessarily immoral. Yeah, it's more like a trickster, as he is understood, I suppose.
Yeah, we spoke about this briefly as well. I don't belong to any particular tradition. I'm not a Christian. I don't belong to Norse mythology. I don't belong to a specific practice. So everything that I say and examples from different stories and different mythologies and different religions and so on, they're mainly used as an example to bring forth a conversation. But if you feel like I'm stepping on any toes by talking about these topics, please let me know.
Yeah.
So all of these stories are fascinating since they kind of have the same message, kind of like you said. Like they're playing, it's all fun and games, right? Until it isn't. And as you said, Loki, he kind of enables things to happen so that they can continue. Since Loki is part of the Old Norse people believed that destiny was sealed, was set in stone, kind of like many mythologies and religions and beliefs, that destiny you cannot change. So every little part, every person has a role to play. And in their way of seeing the world is that Loki needs to do these things in order to bring forth the end of the world. And it sounds harsh, the end of the world, like dying, everything being destroyed. But not in a way of we think as the world burns down and there's nothing left. Since their way of thinking is also cyclical. After the destruction and the doom comes a new world. And a new world, kind of like in Hinduism. Just because it's Kali Yuga doesn't mean, no, it's the end. It's simply winter. And then after winter, exactly.
But Bardo,
Sorry?
the perspective of he who shoots the arrow, but we didn't really discuss the person who receives the arrow.
Baldo, he dies.
But I mean,
And
is he playing as well? Was it? I mean,
I would say that, as far as I know, none of these characters knows what's going to happen. Only one knows, and that is the king, Odin. Since he sacrificed parts of himself, not only his eye, but there is a story that isn't so famous. It's regarding Odin's knowledge. And it's that he takes his spear and he willingly impales himself on this big ash tree that is a metaphor for their world. And he hangs there for 9 days and 9 nights until he gets one with the universe, so to speak, the tree and all the worlds and everything. So he dies, but he doesn't really die in that way that he disappears. He dies. It's kind of like an ego death almost. So he receives, just like mantra, but he receives the knowledge of the runes. And runes are also like mantras, in a way. They all have names and different, when you say them, it's not just a word, it's a sort of a hum. So he knows what's going to happen, but the rest of the characters, they don't really know. So they're kind of like, even if Odin is the one that knows, he's no more than the king in the chess piece. He's not a player. Someone else is moving him, but he knows that he is a character. And is that worse or better? I don't know. To be aware that, yeah, someone is playing this game, and I'm still, even if I'm the most valuable player, MVP, I'm still just part of the game. So, yeah. So Balder dies. I was thinking that since I have this other copy with a lot of notes, which was my intention for perhaps excerpts and chapters to maybe read to you. But I was thinking perhaps if you want to go like around in a circle, you can look at the index and see if anything rubs your eyes. If there is a chapter that, ooh, this caught my attention. Does that sound good? Yeah?
Wait, read it out?
If you wish.
Oh.
If you don't feel comfortable reading, I could also read it if you want to. Not like in a teacherish way, more like to see what happens. There are 4 sub-chapters called intermissions, which would be a good idea. You can look at them, but they are actually not really good to be read as a separate reading, since they're meant to be a pause. They're placed in kind of like in 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, so it kind of divides the book, so to give the reader a break, since there are many topics. And this is a book that you could start from the middle, could start from the back. You can just pick any chapter that takes your fancy.
How many times does Kali Yuga appear in the book?
A couple. Yeah. If you feel drawn to that, then please.
The first paragraph.
Absolutely.
As we gently nudged at the end of the previous chapter, the idea of time is fixed, linear construct that can be measured and understood in simple, concrete terms is only a small fraction of what it really is. I'm going to keep going because I'm curious.
Sure.
By deeper into this concept, or rather the illusion of it, we will explore aspects of our current understanding that might reveal a more complicated dimension. Most mainstream societies operate under a linear model of time, a road from past to present and finally to the future. However, many indigenous cultures and certain Eastern philosophies perceive it as cyclical, where time is viewed as a series of repeating cycles. Seasons, where time is viewed as a series of repeating cycles. Seasons come, ancient civilizations like Maya and the Greeks had a different approach to time. The Greeks had 2 words for it: chronos, chronological time, where minutes, hours, and dates move in a straight line, and kairos, qualitative, the perfect time for something meaningful to happen.
Any thoughts or notions regarding that?
Yeah, super cool. That chronos and kairos idea. It's because we Chinese really have the same saying.
Yeah.
It's so you gotta mechanically measure time, or say it's measured by the movement of the sun, the stars, whatever. Then there is a something like nature's time, something when conditions align for a certain event to happen, and it has to happen now. It's super cool.
It's what we're just discussing with your experience in the dark.
Yeah.
We're asking about your concept of time and
Yeah.
like the rhythms of your life certain change, your sleep cycles go on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It resonates with both the darkness retreat, which we spoke about, and also, did we also talk about an inner walk? Yeah. So I did an inner walk meditation. It's pretty much you walk back and forth, pace back and forth for 4 hours, kind of like 16 yards back and forth. And you are encouraged to not have a watch or try not to keep track of time. That is easier said than done, especially for a person like me. 12 years in the military left a mark on me to kind of, well, it's kind of conscious conditioning as a grown-up, where you train yourself into, I need to keep track of time. But what actually happened was that I started, and for the first, I don't know, suppose 15, 20 minutes, I thought, oh, God, this is so boring. Why am I doing this? I could do something better. I could edit some movies, I could read a book, I could write something, I could work out, I could do something else. And that went on for some time. And eventually, I just walked back and forth. And someone rang a gong, and 4 hours had passed since I kind of surrendered to it. I didn't give up. I surrendered to just, this is my life right now. I'm just gonna walk back and forth. Even though it's boring, I thought in the beginning, and then 4 hours went like that. Which means that time, as we perceive it, if you stand in a plank position, 1 minute is gonna feel very long. But if you sit around and just have a massage, 1 minute is gonna be very fast. So that is also like Chronos and Kairos, qualitative and sort of real time as we measure minutes and so on.
For sure makes a lot of sense to me. I spent now 2 weeks in Thailand, and it feels like I spent at least a month here. It was such a full time for me.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yeah. Was it the chapter time? Yeah, that was one of the no-goes. My wife said, no, do not read that chapter. That's too abstract, man.
She's right. So 10 years in the military.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, whole cycle. A full contract.
So that's time. And when you're there, are you thinking about all these ideas, or did that come after?
In hindsight, during. But when I was in there, not so much. I realize now that there are a lot of examples from that time that I remember, but remembering something, and it's kind of like when you look back at something that happened during your childhood. Now I can see them with adults' eyes, kind of like I couldn't see that when I was a kid. And I thought, but it's just how things are. But when I really focus and I think back, wait a minute, if I look at this situation with a grown-up's eyes and a grown-up's mind, what really happened? Or what transpired? Or how was it really? Realizing, probably all began during a very odd circumstance or whatever.
You've got another chapter in there called.
Yeah.
Then there's a separate chapter.
Yeah.
That I've been read both of them.
Yeah.
Within the content of the chapters, how are they different?
Well, time speaks more about the concept of time, like what you just read. More about how it's not very long, I think it's only 2 pages or something. Yeah, the chapters are not consistent. It's not going to be 10 pages, chapter 1, 10 pages, chapter 2. One chapter could be 30 pages, and another could be 3. Depends on what kind of mood I was in, that's right. So, chapter 40, Today versus Past. A common saying is that despite its flaws, we should be happy and content with today's reality, because it is far better than any other age in history. I personally have heard that statement many times in my life, a saying where we paint a picture of the past as a bleak, brutal time, full of hardship, disease, and oppression, all while casting the present as the best possible era for human existence. It is true that humanity has made remarkable advancements, but that doesn't mean we should use it as an excuse, an oversimplification that tells us we should accept any status quo and not push for further improvement. It's kind of like saying that, but it's so good now and everything in the past sucked, so we should be happy and not do anything about it. It's kind of like making an excuse for being unwilling to, improve something. Just, but we have cushions. Yesterday we didn't have any cushions. But maybe we want a sofa. settling kind of statement of the mind. Kind of like, it is good to be content with what we have, but not as an excuse to not try and, be brave and see if is there something better? Is there something more? Kind of.
What is that page? Oh, it was, I'm not going to read this one. It's a predestination.
Oh, it's my wife's favorite.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not. She hates that chapter.
That each of us has a single predestined path we must fulfill has massive appeal. It gives life a sense of order and meaning, but viewing life as if it has one singular destiny can also become limiting, creating the illusion that we must follow the path or risk a life without value or meaning. This belief, which we call the great lie of predestination, suggests that we're bound by fate or divine intention. However, if we look closer, a broader, more liberating perspective emerges. We always have the freedom to choose our path, to redefine our purpose, shape and reshape our lives in alignment with our current desires rather than a fixed date.
My wife, I think she's warming up to that chapter, but she's not too keen on that, since she's a great believer of she has a soul purpose. And I tell her, yes, you do. But maybe your soul's purpose, or whatever it is to create that purpose. I believe there is an example in the chapter regarding a man called Oskar Schindler. Have you heard about that man? They made a pretty good movie a couple of years ago called Schindler's List, starring Liam Neeson. And that guy, he didn't start out as a hero. He was pretty much a war profiteer. He was a member of the Nazi party. Not maybe because he was a believer, because, it makes life easier for him. So what he did was he was starting factories in occupied Poland, using Jewish people as pretty much slaves, slave labor. Good for him because he got a lot of money. And after some time, he made a radical change. Instead of profiteering, making money out of it, he decided to spend his own money and also risk his own life to try and save as many Jewish people as possible. So you could say that he didn't start out as a hero. His destiny, he wasn't predestined to become that. It started one way and it ended somewhere completely different. And as far as I know, he is the only member of the Nazi party that is buried in the Christian cemetery in Jerusalem. So that is kind of what the chapter is about, that it's not really just because someone tells you that you're destined to be whatever it might be. You can still also maybe create something for yourself. I mean, the founder of the Crips gang in the US, Tookie Williams, do you know what he did on his last days on death row? He wrote children's book. Many children's book warning young people the dangers of engaging in gang activity. He was a condemned murderer. He killed so many people, and he started this gang that causes a lot of violence. And still, he knew he was going to die. But still, he spent his last days creating children's books. It doesn't excuse what he did, but his past doesn't have to define how his end is going to be. I think that's pretty inspiring. Oh, what do you think?
Freedom and the construct find freedom.
Yeah. Kind of like I don't know if there are any mountaineers here, but when you have a rope up in the mountains, the trick is to give it some slack. If you want to loosen it, if you pull tighter, it's gonna, tighten the notch. When you give it a slack, let's go. So chapter 44, freedom. I was more of the understanding that when you really want something, the way you're gonna get it is probably not by chasing it, it's by letting go. Then it's kind of like holding water. You can't hold water tight, it's gonna disappear.
Good and evil. I was going to read a little bit of this maybe.
Yeah.
The concept of good versus evil seemingly appears to most of us as a fundamental duality, a cosmic battleground, where our intentions and actions determine on what side of history we will land. It is in fact one of humanity's great lies, a simple matter of a product of our self-imposed beliefs, judgments, and limited perceptions. Good and evil isn't an objective truth. It's a framework we humans use to navigate and make sense of our experiences. And I was looking at the next page too, and it very makes sense that, because today we hear that a lot throughout history, an evil person, evil actions, evil this, evil that, good actions, good person. And it's so, I think we try to base it, I think you get into that through the chapter, is based on early experiences, and how your mind is being shaped by those experiences as a human, as a child, or as wherever you're exposed to,
Yeah.
how much influence that really has on a person.
Yeah.
So trying to understand that. But anyway, that interested. I don't know if anybody else has any ideas on that, but it was very good.
Could I take a picture of the cover?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm actually planning on leaving these books here for anyone to enjoy. And actually wrote a little signature on the front page, on the first page. So it's, yeah, sure. I mean, it's pretty much a gift, and you're free to do whatever you wish with that gift. You can throw it in the trash, you can burn it, you can give it to a friend, you can, yeah. Yeah. No worries, no worries. Could a good person do an evil deed?
There's a great book, and I really recommend. I already recommend it to a lot of my friends, but it's not a book for everyone. It's written by a psychoanalyst. It's from DC, James Hollis.
Yeah.
Right. And he wrote a book called "Why Do Good People Do Bad Things?"
Yeah.
And it was one of the most enlightening, reads in my life. So I don't want to ruin the plot. I mean, there isn't a plot, but
Why do you think good people do bad things? After reading the book, or your own viewpoint on the world?
Well, I've got preconceived. I mean, I had preconceived ideas, prior to studying that book, so it's not fair. And then reading that book did not alter my own interpretation. Why does this happen? But it did lend me a lot of insight, and many of these, a lot of things he said really stayed. But he really looks at it from the unconscious point of view, like Jungian psychology.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My background, what I do is, I don't just write books. Both me and my wife, we work with workshops, treatments, and she's a Tantra therapist.
What therapist?
Tantra. So she works in Tantra. And my kind of, not speciality, but my personal interest is shadow work. Kind of like the Jungian, kind of like my mentor described it the first time. Who is driving the bus? Are you driving the bus, or is someone else driving it for you? Kind of like you're on it and you're on the destination, but are you driving, or are you just sitting looking out? That is a major interest for me personally as well.
Consciousness, right? Witness consciousness.
Yeah.
How free are we?
Yeah. Since my mentor, the first time I met him, he told me what made him get into this kind of shadow work, Jungian part. He was a Tantra teacher, but he worked mainly in shadow works. And he explained it as, he said that his earliest memory was when he was 5 years old. It was his birthday. He was from the UK, I don't remember exactly where. But they were celebrating his birthday. So they were putting out, tables and balloons and everything that comes with a birthday. And as a kid, that's gonna turn 5. It's a day of fun, right? It's of joy, and you're feeling, oh my God, it's gonna be so good, and all my friends are coming and gonna get presents, and it's gonna be cake and everything. So as a kid, he was like dancing around, and he was getting up on the table, dancing around, and I suppose that his parents or his mom was not an evil person. She was maybe just stressed that day. But as he was dancing and going around, his mother turned to him and said, "Get bloody table! Don't be a fucking show-off!" And that's leaves a mark on a kid. So he explained it as I was growing up into an adult, he started to hate people that were show-offs. And that is kind of discovering what kind of shadow sides of myself is, because they're not evil, these parts. He explained it as they're not your enemies, they're your friends, actually, your best friends. There's some parts of you that wants to keep you safe. Because as a kid, that's what happened to him. Everything in his being screamed out, saying, this is dangerous. Let's never put ourselves in this situation again. So it became a friend. And it also, even though it protected him, it kind of hindered him in his life. And it wasn't until he was an adult that he realized that, yeah, this occasion that happened during my childhood actually set the course of my life. But now I became aware of it, and now I can do something about it. So instead of being a passenger, I can be the driver.
So within the realm of psychology and psychological plane and therapy and all of that, where does Tantra come in? And maybe you can define it and you, from your own world, what you think Tantra is and how use it as a technique or...
I can actually share my first meeting with Tantra. It happened 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I've had enough. I was in a relationship that didn't work out for me. It was a very bad relationship for me personally. But I was at a state where I couldn't really get out. I could, but that would mean hurting someone. So I stayed, even though it was bad for me. But eventually, what you suppress, it comes out. So I gave everything away. All my stuff, all my belongings, all my money. I quit my job, quit my school. I only kept a backpack for myself. And I started walking in Sweden, starting from the south. And I was planning in my head, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna do a real walkabout. I'm gonna walk the length from the south to the north. So I did, or I started. But something happened along the way. I met the woman that is my wife today. And she invited me to her place. She said, we had been speaking earlier in writing to each other. And she said, well, if you are walking, why don't just, take a detour and say hello to me? And I did. So I came to her place, and she is the one that mentioned, I'm doing a little bit of Tantra. And I didn't really know what Tantra was. I've heard someone mention it, probably connected to sex or something hedonistic. So I actually asked her, maybe you can you show me something? Could you show me how you practice Tantra? And she hesitated for a moment and said, okay, you have to give me a moment, okay? Okay, I said, and I waited in her kitchen while she walked into her living room and closed the door. And I waited for, felt like an eternity, probably less than 20 minutes. Yet again, time, how we experience it. So I could hear her rampaging around in the living room. And I was starting to think, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? Maybe she's, maybe she's preparing to, sacrifice me to the heathen tantric gods. Or my perception of what it would be like was so abstract because I had no previous experience of it. So when she was done, she said, okay, now you can come in. And in her living room, she placed a yoga mat and some candles surrounding it, some incense. And she invited me to sit down. So we sat on opposite sides of each other. And she told me that, okay, now we're going to do something called an eye gazing, which is pretty much you sitting in front of another person and you look into the eyes, preferably the left eye, and you simply stay, just looking and see what happens inside of you. Because that is also a big part of society, right? It's a bit, you don't really want to make eye contact since that is very intimate. And that is a little bit scary because if you're intimate, you're vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, you don't really know what kind of, intention does the other person have. But if you do this willingly and you lock eyes and you stay just for a moment, even though it might feel uncomfortable. Who knows what you're gonna feel? So that was my first tantric practice, an eye gaze, pretty much. And then she asked me, would you like to do another practice? And these are, some people call this, but these are very basic practices. But I would say that these are also very advanced. It depends on, kind of like in Zen, the beginner's mind. You can look at a pillow 1,000 ways and 1,000,000 ways, and then 10 years later you can see something completely different, right? And so she said, we could do one more practice. It's called a sharing. The same as with the eye gaze. You sit facing each other, and the person that starts gets to ask any question it wants. And the person receiving the question doesn't have to answer it. Can say, no, I don't want to answer that. So I asked her, I don't really know where I got this from, but I said, what is the hardest thing you've ever been through in your life? And I didn't realize how big that question was. And she closed her eyes and took a big inhale. And then she shared a story when she was 20 years old. She went to Australia. 20 years old, you want to see the world and do something different, perhaps. And in Australia, she met a man who was very charismatic and charming. So she got kind of seduced by him. And this man actually kind of captured her and kept her in captivity and tormented her and tortured her and raped her and forced her to do unspeakable things during that year. And that is what she shared with me the very first day we met, just because of me asking that question and she taking it in and being vulnerable and saying, at the end she said, I've actually never shared this story. It's just my family. So yeah, that's second tantric practice. So you could make tantra as advanced as you want to, but the main business is vulnerability. How much can we allow ourselves to be seen, and even though it hurts or is painful. So that is tantra for me, to be vulnerable. And that was the moment I thought, I choose you. Yeah, after she said that. That's my conscious choice. I choose you. And here we are. And I only share this because she herself chose 1.5 years ago to go out with this publicly in a blog, telling. Otherwise I wouldn't share it. It's her. Yeah. But since she shared it herself, I'm feeling I can share this. Yeah.
Very inspiring.
She is. She's very inspiring. I usually say I don't have many inspirations in my life, but she is the biggest one.
We're just in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And you were doing different practices.
Yeah.
As you shared one with me, I'm sure you said there were multiple.
Yeah.
But anything in the book of what you've written in the theme of great lies that comes relevant to you during those practices recently?
Yeah, a big one. I wrote the book, and when I was done, I felt very proud, like, wow, I'm a somebody now. I did something, I achieved something. That was the ego talking. During the course of the end of this year until now, that book tested me on one of the most controversial subjects there is in the book. The chapter about relationships and ownership in a kind of way. So yeah. Ownership, yeah. Both. If we look at chapter 7, it's ownership goes deep. It is a concept that has shaped how we view everything in life, from relationships, property, and even self-worth. The lie of ownership, the very idea that possessing something, or like in most cases, someone, will bring us fulfillment, security, or status, influences almost every aspect of modern life. From the material to the non-physical, we are taught that to own is to control. However, this lie unfortunately only leads to restrictive behavior and negative outcomes. And by examining its origin and impact generated by this need, we can begin to see the way in which the lie of ownership creates more harm than good. And I draw a lot of parallels regarding this subject, ownership to relationship. When people see other people as their personal stuff, kind of like if you have a nice car, it brings you happiness because it's a nice car, but it comes with a price. Since you have a nice car, maybe you get afraid that someone is going to take that car from you. The same goes with perhaps if you have a very lovely wife. You love her because she's lovely, or a very nice husband. But maybe there is some fear inside that maybe someone else will see how valuable he or she is and maybe try to steal it from me. Then what do? We create kind of like barriers to safeguard our treasure. We say maybe, I don't want you to go out on your own. I don't want you to go to that gym, perhaps. I don't want you to do that. Kind of like pulling out like fences. How I write the chapter about ownership. Because there are so many parallels to like human relationships, subconsciously and very consciously sometimes. I said this is a positive book. It sounds very dark and very gloomy, right? But every chapter ends with a positive message. So for example, let's take self-sacrifice. That's a good one. Self-sacrifice starts with a sentence, must we engage in self-sacrifice at the expense of our own well-being and desires to be considered good and noble? Is this also a deeply entrenched lie in our collective mind? So it kind of questions it. And this is also a personal story about one of my mentors. She is the one that initiated me into fire walks. And she told me and taught me that you cannot give from an empty cup. Even if you want to give, you need to fill up the cup, otherwise you're gonna give an empty cup. When she went to the US and was initiated in a sacred sweat lodge ceremony by Native American elders, there was a ceremony where they had a cup full of berries. They were sitting in this sweat lodge. It's pretty much like a dome structure, covered by blankets and sometimes skin. And in the middle you have like a pit where you put hot stones from a fire, sort of to create a prehistoric sauna. So then you pour water on it and you take rounds and so on, and it's a releasing ceremony. And what they did was that they have been fasting for 2 days. Sometimes you do that. You do a saltwater fast to cleanse the body. So everyone was pretty hungry. So there were 10, I think, in the sweat lodge. And this woman, she was the first one. And the elder told her, now you eat, and then you pass the bowl along. So naturally, she was a kind woman. She didn't want to stuff her face and eat everything. She wanted to share it with her friends and with the people that participated in the experience. So she ate a little bit and then tried to pass the bowl along. And the elder said, no, you're not done. And she was a little bit embarrassed because it was so loud. Okay, so she ate some more and then tried to pass it along. And she said, no, you're not done yet. So she ate and she ate and she ate until she actually felt, no, but I'm pretty content now. And in a sweat lodge, it's dark, so you can't really see. And it turns out it was only a few berries left in the bowl when she passed it along. But the experience wasn't meant to be a lesson in equality. It was meant to show that even if you want to give, you cannot give from emptiness. So even if it feels bad, fill up your own cup. Kind of like when you fly. When you have a kid and you fly with them, the instruction says, before helping your kid, you put on your own mask first. Otherwise you're gonna pass out and nobody can help anyone. So the chapter ends with the words, you are significant and you can serve without bleeding, you can love without losing, and you can give from fullness, not obligation.
This building?
Yeah.
The temperature and humidity is different.
That's like my personal sweat lodge then. You can hold a ceremony down there.
So on the subject of heat, I know Jamie was interested in the fire walking. So it's like a practice you went through and learning the technique.
Yeah, it correlates with the book actually. Since I mentioned that I wrote the book, I started writing it 1.5 years ago. And up until last summer, it was pretty much done. It's finished. could publish it. It was done, ready to be read. But I didn't really dare to, because, as I said, if the only other person, without excluding me, that's ever read the book is my wife. So what if I publish it and everyone can see, and maybe they will judge me and they will think you're nobody, or maybe they will think, don't know anything. There is always this fear of being judged. You're gonna doubt yourself. You're gonna feel like, but this is really a lie, a great lie. So I left the book alone. Just stayed on the desk. I didn't do anything. And my wife was on me saying, come on, you need to publish it. It's good. Read it 1,000 times. And I said, yeah, maybe I'm just gonna do a little small adjustment, maybe. I don't like the sentence. I came up with excuses not to do it. And then I found this woman that held a firewalk instructor training. A training for people that wanted to be instructors in firewalks and empowerment, and kind of the empowerment sphere. And everything inside of me felt, yeah, I need to do this. So I did it. And after I've done that training, I published the book. Since there is also a ceremony called board break in firewalking communities, it's pretty much you have a board and you're supposed to smash through it. Yeah, it's about overcoming the fear of, it's gonna hurt if you hesitate, but if you follow through, it's gonna be okay. Well, on that board, you can actually write a message of something that you wish to break through. And my message was for me to feel the fear of releasing this work of mine and letting people take part in it. And to make it even more dramatic, you can actually let the board on fire. Some kerosene.
We won't burn after reading.
So I could say that the book that I wrote actually taught me a lot of things, because it made me, on a personal level, push through and go through with it. I needed to become an empowerment coach in order to publish this. Because of myself, I needed to empower myself. So I wrote this book because one day I was in the bookstore and I was looking at self-help literature and I couldn't really find anything that suited me. So I wrote this one because,
Will we be on YouTube?
Yeah, it will.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Wait.
Oh, if you're interested in the recording.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna. It's a lot of work to edit, especially if you're one person. But eventually, in time, maybe there will be some kind of clip from it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
Not only enlightening, but super entertaining. Very inspired by your humility and humanity.
Thank you
so much, Robin.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll find you.
It's just, I'm not a narcissist. It's just that I didn't have any post-its, so I used my visitor.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for
coming.
No worries. And
Very interesting.
And my hope is that maybe some parts of this book will, be of some great service to you in your personal life and in the service of others. If you happen to find yourself in the north of Sweden this summer, at the end of July, the last of July, there is a festival, a spiritual festival in the north. It's called the Tot Festival, from the Egyptian god Tot. And we're gonna be there. We're gonna hold a big lecture regarding this book and also do firewalks. So who knows if you happen to be in the north of Sweden at the end of summer? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I believe that one of our friends, Lynn Holmqvist, I don't know if it was in Poland or in Czech Republic. She was part of the team that organized the Tantra Festival. Maybe we'll see each other around. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jamie, for accepting me. Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
So how much longer are you guys in Thailand?
Up until tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. So tomorrow evening or tomorrow. Yeah. Flying.
Chronological.
Yeah. And Kairos.